Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Healthspan Masterclass. Today we have our fitness coach, Vicki Kenney, to present on mindset and resilience. Mindset and resilience are two key pillars of lasting health, and we're so excited to have this conversation with Vicki. Vicki brings a powerful blend of experience in fitness, behavior changes, and coaching. And in this session, she's diving into what it really means to build mental toughness, staying motivated, and navigating setbacks with grace. Whether you're on a journey to improve your physical health or just trying to show up stronger in your everyday life, this masterclass is packed with insights to help you stay grounded, focused, and resilient. Let's get into it. Thank you, Vicki.
Thanks, you guys. I am a fitness coach here at Healthspan, and I'm going to talk to you today about mindset and resilience. If you have tuned in into any of our master classes, Chris Lindley did one a couple weeks ago on our health shields, and number one being mindset. So it is a big component in wellness, and we're going to dive into it today. When we talk about resilience, and mindset, they kind of go hand in hand. Resilience is the ability to adapt and recover from adversity or stress or a challenge. Okay. We need to maintain a healthy well being, okay, and bounce back from difficult situations. It requires emotional strength, flexibility, and perseverance. So I want you to keep in mind that. But when we talk about mindset today, I think if I asked a lot of you guys, like, what does mindset mean to you? Or you guys would give me a lot of examples of people that you've run into in life, um, probably a lot of physical things that they have done that shows a strong mindset. You might say, well, this person forgot their socks in their marathon and they ran with no socks and they had blisters the whole time, but they finished, their mindset is strong. Or, the woman that broke the world record of holding a plank for hours and hours, her mindset is strong. And though this is a component of strong mindset, I don't believe it's the only thing we need to work on. So today, when we talk about mindset, I want you to think about more focus than fitness. Um, and I'm going to start with a personal story for myself and just to kind of give you an idea of why I think this. I've always led with physical, but realized later in life that I need to work on my mental side of mindset. And I was raised in a very traditional family, mother and father married, three girls in the family. I'm in the middle, and I am definitely not the typical middle child. I'm a very compliant, rule follower type person. My father, my parents both were very strict, but my father, I would say, was pretty strict. And I never remember him ever giving accolades or you did a good job or great job on that grade or anything like that. It's kind of a joke. I would get a B and he would say, "What happened to the A?" So I think at a very young age, I was searching for um, the best. And though, I kind of make a joke as well that, this is where I go to therapy for as an adult. I think it kind of actually helped me though as well. It made me seek out challenges because I was always trying to prove to him or whoever, look, I did something good. And I got into sports and I feel like I found that satisfaction with coaches telling me I did a good job or teammates, giving me that, hey, thanks for doing this or supporting me here or whatnot. So, there's a lot of thanks I should give my father for kind of raising me that way. And, I feel like over the years that I have built a lot of mindset, strong mindset, but all of it has come in general from being physical. I've done, I played collegiate soccer. I have tried out for different teams. I have done Ironmans. I have done Spartan races. I have done CrossFit. I've done all these things, always seeking different things to try to grow my mindset. And though it wasn't until 2021 that I realized there's more into mindset than just the physical side. So in 2021, my husband was diagnosed with bladder cancer, and it came out of nowhere. You know, when he was diagnosed, we, asked the doctors, like, how did this happen? He said, what did I do? How did I get this? And they said, do you smoke? Have you ever smoked or drank? And he said, no, I've never done any of those. And they're like, we don't really know. Um, it's just happened. And you're really young for this to happen, but, this is kind of what's going on. And we both went through this phase of like, how could this happen? Why did this happen? Why us? Why him? And you kind of go through denial and then acceptance, and then you just put your head down and say, okay, let's figure out what we need to do. So after many doctor's appointments and biopsies and all these things, talking to different doctors, he came up with, what he wanted to do for this situation. We found this amazing pioneer doctor in Denver who does robotic surgery for neobladders. And she basically told him, in order for you to live a lifestyle that you're currently living, I am going to need to remove your entire bladder because the cancer that you have is aggressive and you won't survive if you keep it. And I'm going to build you a new bladder with your small intestine. And so, we kind of accepted that and decided, okay, this is the route we're taking. And so in December 31st, 2021, my husband, this man who is the pillar of our family, the rock, the protector, the supporter, he is going into this big surgery. I, as a wife and a caregiver and, a teammate, was all in, and we went down to Denver. We have 3 daughters, and our 2 oldest daughters were home, luckily, for the holidays. So taking care of the younger daughter in the household and such, and I was able to go down there on New Year's Eve. And my husband had the surgery. It was an extensive surgery. I think it was like 12 hours. The doctor called me about 11:30 that night, and she said, your husband did great. Surgery was a success. He's on his way to recovery. You can see him for a few minutes if you want before he goes into recovery. I said, awesome. And she said, I just want to let you know, he fought, coming out of anesthesia, he fought, and we had to tie him down, and he scratched his eyes. So his eyes are covered and they have medicine in them. I said, okay. And I wasn't actually really surprised because, this is a man who's never been sick. He's never had any surgeries. Well, I shouldn't say he's never been sick. He's never been majorly sick. He's never had any surgeries, no injuries, nothing major. So I go to meet him, which ends up being in a hallway where they're rolling him to recovery. It was a nurse aide. And I said, hey, as soon as I said, hey, he said, Vicki, 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 I'm in so much pain. What is going on? I can't move my arms. I can't see anything. And I kept my composure and I said, you did great. Dr. Kasia said, everything was successful. I understand you're in pain, but you're going to go to recovery. They're going to give you medicine and I'll see you in the morning. And he kept saying, please don't leave me. Please don't leave me. Vicki, I'm hurting. And, it was really, really difficult. And I was realistic about the situation in the regards of like, he just had major surgery. He's kind of loopy out of it. And, and I just kept telling him, I'll see you in the morning. You're going to get a great night's sleep. And off he went. And as he's rolling into the elevator, he just keeps yelling, please don't leave me. Please don't leave me. And then I saw him the next day. And now I want to tell you, the doctor, when we decided this surgery, she said, it is an extensive surgery. You'll be in the hospital 3 or 4 days. And then recovery is about 4 weeks. In about 4 weeks, you'll be able to go to light duty and go back to work working at a desk. I was like, okay, so you have your plan, right? It's kind of like a race. Like you train for a marathon, it's 26.2 miles, and you're like, okay, I can do this. So both our brains are like, okay, 4 weeks and 3 or 4 days in the hospital and such. We're like, okay, we got this. So the next day I go into the hospital, and I realized very early on that kind of our roles were majorly switched in our relationship. I had to be the leader. I had to really abdicate for him. Um, and I was actually really proud of myself. You know, I remember thinking in my head was like, you've been training for this your whole life. Like, you have the tools to do this. You have the tools to be a leader. You have the tools to step up to the plate and take care of this. And so that's what I did. And for 3 or 4 days, great. And I did it. And then I realized he can't go home. He's not anywhere near ready to go home. And I kept abdicating, talking to his doctors and telling the PTs. And I was like, he can barely get out of bed. He's in excruciating pain still. And so we ended up being there for almost a week. And then we got the news, like, I felt comfortable that he could go home. And I thought it was going to, I thought this is going to be great because it's your own home and your own bed and whatnot. So we headed home, and I was, you know, it was like training, it was like a race. Like, I am ready. I'm suited up. I'm ready to kill it here at home as a healthcare nurse, mom, wife, all these things. I had my alarm set for all his meds. I had my marker board. I had the phone numbers to talk to all his nurses and such. And I did that, and I killed it. For over just about a week, and he ended up getting an infection in his bladder. So he had to go back to the hospital. And I felt like when he came home, we just started back from square one. But that was okay. Like, sometimes, you cramp up during a race and you're like, okay, let me, reassess and figure out how to finish this race. And now we're in week 2, and there really wasn't a lot of progress. He had to self-catheterize himself. And I know if you're a male out there, just hearing catheterizing yourself is probably making you cringe. Think about doing that every 2 hours to yourself. He barely got any sleep. It was a very, very long recovery process. It was almost 3 weeks. And I'm thinking, there's no way that he's going back to work in 4 weeks. And it was about this point that I broke. I remember thinking that this could be the rest of my life. I could be a caregiver for my husband for the rest of my life. And those words, for better or worse, just pop in your head, and you're like, okay, this could be my reality. I remember feeling defeated. I remember feeling lost. I remember specifically saying to myself, you have no more tools in your tool belt. You have gone through everything that you could possibly think of to help you get yourself through this, let alone your husband. And I ended up, talking to some friends who suggested I reach out or find a support group, which is completely out of my comfort zone. It's really not my thing, but I, at that point, needed to try something because I don't quit, right? So I found a support group. Great. It was specifically for this surgery. I went through all the posts. I found a gentleman who was similar age to my husband, who was post-surgery over a year. Kind of similar activities. He's like, I'm doing great. I'm able to do all these things. So I reached out to him. He gave me some really great advice, and he kind of was the light for me. And sure enough, around week 5, it was like this switch, and it was like progressively, just every little minute and hour and days, that he got better. And so almost 4 years later, he's cancer free, he's healthy, he's able to do pretty much everything that he did before. And I tell you this story because I want you to realize that adversity is coming for everybody, right? It doesn't, it's unbiased. It does not take into account who you are, how much money you have, what car you drive, if you're male or female, how, it doesn't matter. You will come across adversity, and it can come from nowhere. Where we choose our physical challenges, we're a little bit more prepared, right? And I didn't necessarily realize this until this kind of big thing in my life happened, is that how do we train for adversity? How do we become better at handling adversity? And what I'm going to do today is we're going to go over the levels of mindset. And then at the end, I'll tell you, I'm going to give you some tips as to like, how do we get stronger in our mindset? But I want you to realize that for adversity, you know, it will come for you. So we need to be a little bit more prepared. So when it comes to levels of mindset, there are 5 levels, and there probably a different variation out there, but these are the levels that I have. And every level of mindset I have linked it with kind of a character, so that maybe it kind of will trigger when you hear it or you see it or whatever. You're gonna say, okay, I remember. So hopefully you guys recognize a lot of these characters. So we're gonna start, so there's 5 levels. We're gonna start from the lowest, and then we're gonna go to the highest level mindset. When I talk about these, I don't want you to think, well, I'm gonna graduate to the highest level, and I'm gonna stay there, because that's not what happens in life. We're gonna ebb and flow through these mindsets. And you're going to, as I go through them, you're going to recognize some of them in yourself. You're going to recognize them in people you know. So the first level is the victim, okay? When it comes to the victim, the character is going to be Scar, okay? Scar from The Lion King. This is Mufasa's brother. He basically acts as a victim. He blames everybody for everything. It's not his fault he's not king. They never look internally. They always are looking externally, okay? So when it comes to the victim, I want you to think of nothing is my fault. Everything is happening bad because of everybody else. Okay, so this is our lowest level, the victim mindset. The next level is called the pessimist. And when you think of the pessimist, I want you to think of Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. Okay, the pessimist comes from fear. Okay, it's self-defeating, anticipating the worst. They think this is going to suck. This is terrible. They're going to look for things that are wrong. They're going to look for why people will say no. They see the glass half empty. Okay, so this is Eeyore, the second level, the pessimist. The next level is the optimist. The optimist is Buddy the Elf, right? And, you know, instantly we think, oh my gosh, Buddy the Elf is so fun and he's so happy. And this is the optimist. The optimist is going to see everything great. They're going to see everything in kind of rose-colored glasses. Nothing's ever wrong. We've seen these people. It's like plastered all over Instagram where people's lives are perfect. There's nothing wrong. This is the optimist. The problem with the optimist is they lack bracing. So if adversity comes for you or for them, they're going to really struggle with how to handle that, because they don't challenge themselves. The next level, okay, so this is the 4th level, is the realist. This is Katniss from the Hunger Games. Okay, the realist basically knows, and I feel like a lot of us live in this kind of level a lot. She knows that good happens in the world and bad happens in the world. She is very realistic about what is happening in her life, right? She is destined to do this challenge. She could die, but she also is not going to just sit down and let it happen. So I feel like a lot of times we live in this this level of mindset of the realist. We don't really freak out. You realize even in business, like business is going to be good and business could be bad, but there's this kind of ebb and flow between the two. And then the highest level of mindset would be the warrior mindset. And this is Bethany Hamilton. She is, well, she still is, but she world-class surfer, professional surfer who had a tragic accident at a very young age and was bitten by a shark, lost her arm. And instead of lying down and just being a victim or giving up or just not dealing with it, she decided, I'm going to still pursue my passion and I'm going to learn how to surf with one arm. And so, those of you that have ever even tried surfing with two arms, you will realize that doing that with one arm is amazing. The warrior. The warrior is the one that will seek out the most worthy opponent because they know that is where the challenge is. And within the challenge is growth. Okay, so we want to try to reach the warrior mindset daily, and it's very challenging to do that, but this is the highest level. Okay, so when it comes to how do we become better how do we grow our mindset, how do we become stronger, I have some tips. First, and this one is probably the most important, is to start recognizing yourself specifically at what level a mindset you're in certain situations. And as I went through them, I'm sure certain people popped up in your head with different levels of mindset, because there are some people that constantly live as a victim, right? Or constantly live as an optimist. So it's important to start recognizing. For example, I was on vacation like 2 weeks ago, and I was at my most favorite place that I love to go, the beach. I was with my most favorite people, my family, my friends, gorgeous days. And I went in to make lunch one day from the beach, and I pulled out a container of blueberries and they popped open and they spilled all over the floor. And I laughed. I was like, oh gosh, whatever. And I cleaned them all up and put them back. 2 days later, the exact same thing happens. Open the fridge, popped open, all over the floor. And my instinct right away was, are you effing kidding me right now? Like, I can't believe that just happened to me. And immediately, because I had been planning this class and it's very much in the forefront of my brain, I thought, oh, victim. I was acting like a victim for a spilled container of blueberries. And I kind of laughed and I was like, okay, just stop. This is just ridiculous. You're being, ridiculous over a container of blueberries. Clean them up, right? So this is a step that we can take in order to grow our mindset, being aware of where you're at in small things, right? And how do we make that shift right away? If you went to Starbucks, you have 5 minutes to get your cup of coffee in the morning. You pre-ordered, you walk in, you grab your cup, you're like, great, I'm on my way to work. You start to get in the car and somebody knocks you and the whole cup spills and you have no more coffee. You have no time to go back in. You know where you're going isn't going to have coffee. How do you react, right? Are you like, great, of course this happened to me. Of course that person, I can't believe that person did that to me. My day is ruined. It's an opportunity for us to recognize where we're at in our mind and how do we change it? How do we change the way we think instead of being a victim or a pessimist? How do we change that to a higher level of mindset? Can we tell ourselves, okay, I guess today I'm not having a cup of coffee and I'm gonna, as a warrior, right? What would the warrior say? The warrior would say, excellent, great. I want this challenge today because from this challenge, I'm going to learn something. I'm going to grow. Okay, so if we start with small things, the bigger things like cancer might not be as daunting, or we're going to have more tools in your tool belt in order to handle it. Small things like coffee, small things like spilling a container of blueberries. Medium things like somebody cutting you off in the, driving, your child forgets their lunch, you're on a plane, you're like, great, I got a 3-hour flight, I'm going to do my work, this is going to be great, I'm going to get so much done, and you get on your flight and you realize there's no internet. Is your day ruined? Or can you switch it and have a warrior mindset to say, okay, internet's down, what can I do to utilize my time and not make this about everything else, and I can actually be more positive? So step one is recognizing. Okay, we want to practice and recognize that where we are in our mindset. Another thing we can do is you surround yourself with people that are going to raise you up. And Healthspan is awesome at this because we do a lot of community events. We're trying to get you all together in a common theme of mindset. We're all there trying to be healthier, trying to pick the right choices for us daily. And that's what you want to do in life, okay? You want to surround yourself with people at the higher levels of mindset, people that are going to check you, that are going to push you. So, have you ever been around somebody who has a victim mindset? It's very, very challenging. It's very challenging to be around them all day. And some of these people might be family members, right? They might be friends. And that can be very challenging. But if we try to make most of our social group, of our core group, people that are going to be at the higher levels of mindset, we are going to be challenged and pushed in that direction. And these people, there are people out there in your lives that are saying, do you really want to have that third glass of wine tonight? Because you know how you're going to feel in the morning. Do you really want to say that to that person? Do you really want to, it could be anything, anything work related, anything physical as well. So surround yourself with people that are going to raise you up. Get a nice group of core people. And then one of the last ways that I have to give you advice on how do we grow mindset would be, I like to have these little mantras, right? I like to have these little like sentences or quotes so that it's quick and easy and I can kind of repeat it in my mind. One of them is unlimited. Okay. I tell myself when I'm struggling and I'm challenged with something, whether it's physical or work related or family related, I tell myself, you are unlimited. We have no idea what our potential is. It's been proven over and over for decades and years and centuries that the human potential is unlimited. Um, so let's keep that in mind when we think about our mindset and adversity. Just because something is hard doesn't mean we won't get through it, because we will if we give the effort. Okay. The other one that I like to say, and it actually drives my children crazy when I tell them this, or even friends, is if they're struggling with something. I remember there was a friend of mine in the gym, and he came in and he said, "Oh, I forgot my headphones." I said, "So?" He's like, "No, I'm like right down the street. I'm just gonna run home and get them." And I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "Because I need them." I'm like, "But do you?" And he said, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Well, maybe today the universe is giving you what you need and not what you want." And he really paused and he was like, "Okay, fine. I'll work out without my headphones." Right? So there's a lot of things in life that happens, and I feel like that kind of checks you. I have another friend who built this gorgeous house in Tennessee looking over a lake. There was an empty property next to her, and they knew that somebody could build. And someone did build. And they unfortunately built this 2-story dock that she can no longer see as much of the view of the lake that she did. And she just, while I was listening to her, she was talking about how I can't believe this happened. I needed this and that. And I said to her, well, maybe the universe gave you what you need and not what you wanted. And there's a different perspective that we can kind of shift and look at. And so, though it can seem harsh, I feel like it gives you pause. I think like it gives you pause to, are you capable of having a different perspective on it? And then the last one, I'm going to link at the end of this class, and it's like a 3-minute little clip. It's from a Navy SEAL. His name's Jocko. I think his last name is Willink. And he has a quote that he has used over the years called good. Okay, so some of you might have heard of this, but anything that happens where it's adverse or challenging, you can tell yourself, good, this is happening, because it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to grow your mindset, to be stronger. And so keep this in mind. These are kind of some tips. Some of them are going to be more challenging than others, but it is a process. Like I said, when I was going over the levels of mindset, we do not graduate to warrior mindset and stay there, because we have no idea what kind of challenges we're going to come across in our life. I had no idea, my husband and I, that cancer was going to come for him. And I had no idea what it entailed. So to be better prepared is huge. The other one last thing that you could try and do is meditation or breath work. It definitely will help us become more in tune with how we react to things. Someone once, I was listening to a podcast, and he said, I had tried meditation. I felt like I would sit there and I would not actually really be quiet in my brain. My brain was just working. I practiced for however many weeks. But it wasn't until he said this that I was like, okay, I'm back in meditation. And it was, just because your brain isn't quiet doesn't mean that it's not changing you, right? So if say that my brain isn't quiet, but I am still quietly thinking about different things in my life, I'm still working on those things. So when they come back up in my life, I have quietly thought about it and I'm able to maybe process it differently. And I think the same with breath work is, if we practice our breath work, our breathing to calm us, to keep us, our heart rate at a certain pace and level, that when it comes to something that will trigger us, right, our system that makes our heart race or makes us upset, that we're able to kind of pull from these things. So all lots of things to work on. I'm going to attach that link, and I just want to say thank you for joining and listening. I hope that you get some really great things out of this. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you so much, Vicki, for guiding us through today's masterclass and helping us understand the different characteristics of a warrior mindset. As always, if you have any questions or reflections, feel free to send them in our WhatsApp group or send them our way via email. And if there's a topic you'd like to see covered in a future masterclass, please let us know. We are so excited to host these and would love to get our team in front of you. Our upcoming classes are as follows. Our nutritionist, Christine, is hosting a Thriving Together in our next chapter, a group on perimenopause to postmenopause. That's on Wednesdays, June 25th and July 9th and 16th from 5:30 to 7 at CMC in Edwards. Christine will be back next week to give us a masterclass on the bitter truth about sugar. And as always, we have our Healthspan and Wellness Retreat coming up in November from the 1st to the 8th. And you can learn more at vailhealth.org/retreat. Okay, everybody, thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing from you.